In this video, I want to show you the secret to attracting her back. And if you watch a lot of my client stories, this is really the secret sauce they have on how they can go from a very dire situation to the point where they can re-attract their partner within a matter of weeks sometimes. And so if you're new to this channel, guys, my name is Geoffrey and I help men with the internal skills and the external skills as well to be able to re-attract your partner back despite being in very dire situations like if you're in the brink of a divorce or separation, etc. So if you want more content on this topic, then subscribe to this channel and also click the bell button as well to be notified when I post new videos every single week. And the first thing I want to discuss here, guys, is when you're in a long-term relationship or when you're in a marriage, be very careful about what kinds of advice you're looking for in the internet. So you have to understand here that what you need to reconcile and re-attract her back in a long-term relationship or a marriage is very different than what you need when you're in dating stages or when you're in the early stages of the relationship. And the key difference here, guys, is that if you're in a long-term relationship, you're not trying to create some sort of spark. You're not trying to create intrigue or mystery, and you're not really trying to play games at this point. What you have to understand here is that the spark was already created when you guys first got together in the first place. But the spark was lost over time and usually lost due to the lack of safety, as we'll talk about later. So your partner already knows the darkest sides of you. Your partner already have heard a lot of the promises and the gimmicks that you play. And so the biggest mistake I see people make is that people use these learnings they take from videos around dating and apply it to long-term relationships. So they play things like the no contact rule, for example. But if you're in a long-term relationship again, you're dealing with a ton of baggage. And you need to understand what that baggage is and resolve that baggage. And so if you play no contact rule, that's the last thing your relationship actually needs right now. So to understand the rest of the video, we need to first understand and deconstruct why your partner decided to leave in the first place. And I want you to remember this one principle, is that people never leave because of the problems itself. But people leave because of the catch-22 that lies beneath the problems. So to understand this, I want you to imagine this. Whatever problems you have in your relationship right now, it can be anything. Just think about anything, any problems that you have in your relationship right now. Let's say that you have these problems, but you are able to express the problems, have your partner understand the problems, listen to you in the problems, and eventually both of you to resolve the problems. Would those problems lead to you leaving that relationship? Usually not. Because if you can resolve the problems, then the problems don't become problems anymore. But let's consider another scenario here. Let's say that you have the same problems again, but now there's no safety to actually express anything. Because in the past, whenever you try to express these problems, you either get gaslit, for example. Your partner shuts down. Your partner gets angry at you. Your partner starts to not listen and starts to justify those problems. That would be a very hopeless feeling because it puts you again in that catch-22, where you will lose if you share, for obvious reasons, but you will lose also if you don't share, because obviously if you don't share it, you will never resolve the problem. So either way you step, you lose. And this hopelessness, guys, this catch-22 is what causes your partner to leave. So again, it's not that all these problems are causing your partner to leave, but it's really the catch-22 that lies beneath it that causes your partner to leave. So if you watch my client stories with Jason and Maria Travado, for example, or Brandon and Jen, you will hear this directly from their partner's mouth on how this catch-22 is exactly why they decided to leave in the first place. And if I look at my own relationship and look at why my partner decided to leave in the beginning of our relationship, that was the exact same thing that she said. It was a catch-22 again. And this is key, guys, because when you understand that the root behind this catch-22, that is the cause of all your problems, is really the lack of safety here, then we need to understand also that the first step to reconciliation is usually the creation of safety. So I want you to imagine a pipe with me. And this pipe right now is currently blocked in your relationship. They're blocking the pipes are all the things that you've done in the past to really destroy that safety. And because the pipes are blocked, your partner cannot express, you cannot express, no one really wants to listen, etc. So basically, the pipes of communication are blocked because of the lack of safety. When you create safety, that is like you unclogging that pipe. And finally, all of these problems, all of this bitterness and resentment that's been building up for so long in the relationship finally has a chance to flow. And this ability for the relationship to flow again is really how a lot of my clients get the initial quick results. It's that their partner finally has the sense of hope restored because they're finally able to at least express what the problems are. But here's the catch. The way she will engage when the pipes are unblocked is not often the way you expect. So remember again that she's been holding a lot of this resentment and bitterness for a long time. These problems has been festering for a very long time. And so when you clear those pipes, the first water or liquid that comes out of that pipe is not going to be often pleasant, the pleasant water, the nice water. So usually what happens is that when you unclog these pipes, you'll get surge, a flash flood of a lot of resistance, a lot of anger sometimes, a lot of very intense emotions that's been building up for that very long time. And a lot of men would see this as a bad thing, but this is actually a really good thing. Because one, it shows that she feels safe enough to actually share with you, to actually show you what the real problems in the relationship that's been building up are. And she might even share with you the true thoughts, the true feelings that's been causing her to want to leave in the first place. Basically, in her mind, she's saying, okay, so you're saying you've changed. You're saying you can handle the truth so that we can eventually resolve the issues that we have. Well, let me give it to you. So now we established that creating safety is really the first step to re-attracting her back. And while creating safety sounds simple, it's not always easy. And the key reason of why it's not easy is that creating safety is a falling outcome, and it's not a striving outcome. But a lot of men, they only understand this thing called the striving outcome, how to get striving outcomes. And they don't really understand often how to create falling outcomes. And the best way to visualize the difference between striving and falling is when you think about striving. Imagine, let's say, lifting some heavy weight above your head. The more willpower you exert towards lifting that weight, most likely the more weight you can actually lift. So more willpower you exert to get a striving outcome, the more you'll get the striving outcome. But falling outcomes are very different. Falling outcomes, the more willpower you exert, the less likely you're actually going to get closer to that falling outcome. And a great example of this is something like falling asleep, for example. And they call it falling asleep for a reason, because you fall asleep. With falling asleep, the more willpower, the more you try to fall asleep, the less likely you'll actually fall asleep. If you really think about it, that's why people have insomnia, for example. Now, to double down on understanding how difficult this falling outcome is to get to, I want you to imagine again the thousands of times that you've fallen asleep throughout your life. When was the last time you actually remembered the exact moment that you fell asleep? Most likely never. Because the exact moment you fall asleep is the exact moment you forget about trying to fall asleep. The moment you stop trying to fall asleep is the moment you fall asleep. And so we've never really felt what it's like to be in a falling outcome before. But we know we actually get there many times over the course of our lives. Another example of this is, let's say that you are trying to fall asleep right now. But in the moment when you're about to fall asleep, you ask the question, am I asleep yet? That question itself is actually going to get you away from falling asleep. Now, if you think about it in a relationship setting, a lot of us try to get our partners to fall in love with us by always checking up on our partner, for example. By always asking the question, are we there yet? Are you ready to reconcile yet? And we think that asking these questions actually gets her closer to reconciling, but actually, this is just us using a striving approach that actually gets our partner further away from falling back into that relationship. And this is the reason why, even though a lot of men can understand conceptually how to create safety and what safety is, they often cannot even create that safety. And it's because they do this with the striving approach of, for example, telling their partner that they can feel safe and getting all frustrated and impatient when their partner doesn't feel safe immediately. Or maybe they get angry when they find out the tough truths that comes out eventually when they do create safety and they can't handle the real truth, the real difficult truths, etc. Or when they're constantly checking in on the status of the relationship. Or another big mistake is poisoning everything you do with your over-eagerness to reconcile. And people can smell that from a mile away, and when they can smell that, they can never fall back into their relationship with that taint of neediness. So with that said, let's talk about how to actually create that safety and how to get your partner to surrender back into the relationship, which is a big part of what it means to re-attract her back. And there's really 4 ingredients that you need to focus on. So let's start with ingredient 1. So ingredient 1 is really you planting ample seeds of your changes, of how you bettered yourself, of how the past patterns of the relationship does not have to become the new patterns of the relationship going forward. And these seeds that you're planting cannot just be slightly better than what you did in the past, but it needs to be 10x. It needs to be obvious enough for your partner to go, whoa, this is something very different. And this is why the concept of planting seeds is a very crucial part of our program. And you do this by understanding how to make your intentions very clear. So basically, not only talking about your changes, but the intentions behind your changes and making that very clear is very, very crucial. And we do this from what we call the 7 frameworks, which is the guidelines that we use to guide how we communicate with our partners at all times in the relationship. And the challenge, guys, with these frameworks, with planting your intentions and your seeds, is that we need to learn how to do it very organically. And so this is the first ingredient, but a lot of people think that the first ingredient is really the most important. So you hear a lot of men, for example, who try so hard to prove and show their partner that they have changed, but this is actually the least important. If I could assign a percentage to this, this is less than 10% of what it takes to reconcile. Because the second ingredient is a lot more important, which is the scarcity of bad seeds. And so this is when you are stopping any red flags, any manifestations of past old toxic patterns that you've had, where basically you're giving your partner the sense that, maybe this moment shows that he really hasn't changed. And the reason that ingredient number 2 is crucial is we have to go back to why your partner decided to leave in the first place. There's been this buildup of baggage, of resentment for a very long time. And this baggage and resentment is usually caused by a lot of the toxic patterns of your behavior, where she has now seen every tactic you have to try to convince her to stay. Your Rolodex of promises that you give, she knows all that stuff. So there's no games or gimmicks or tactics that you can play to try to convince her right now. And if you are, let's say, giving a lot of really good seeds, but you're also giving a lot of bad seeds at the same time, that's gonna make it very hard for your partner to surrender. So at this point, your partner is seeing, are you faking your changes or are your changes real? And so she's wanting to see, can you not only plant seeds when things are easy, but can you have a scarcity of bad seeds during the key moments, during the tough moments? And if you, let's say, can say all the right things and do all the great things when things are really easy, really calm, then sure, that's great. But if you are doing that, but also showing a lot of toxic behavior during the really difficult moments, that's again going to make it very hard for your partner to fall back into that relationship, to trust you again, to trust those changes. And so during the reconciliation process, you're going to get a lot of tests. You're going to get a lot of resistances and tough truths and just very intense emotions that your partner is showing here. But whatever the tests are, just understand that you can never fake your way through passing these tests. This is why if you listen to any of my client stories, or if you look at my program curriculum, we stress internal shifts a lot. So we stress internal shifts like untetheredness, for example, where we are shifting your brain systems away from doing something because you want to have, doing something because you want to get an outcome, into doing something because you are, because that's part of your identity. And your love for the process intrinsically becomes the main motivator for why you do something. Because if you're doing because you want to have, and your partner is making it very hopeless for you, is resisting a lot, is giving you a lot of tough truths, then basically what's happening is that the having is being taken away from you. But if you do because you want to have, and the having is being taken away from you, you will eventually stop doing as well. And when you stop doing, that is how you fail these tests. That is how you eventually let those toxic old programming behaviors come out again, and you won't be able to help yourself but display these old toxic behaviors again. But if you learn to do because you are, even though the having may be going away, you will still do it because you are. The same way you will brush your teeth regardless of whether you had a good day or a bad day, because that's who you are, that's what you do. And this is also why we talk a lot about, for example, the performance mindset as well, where you make doing the right things into your lowest default. So if you look at a performer, for example, a basketball player, dancer, singer, they make the complex things, the complex movements and maneuverings into something that's actually very simple for them, into their lowest default. And that's what makes a true performer. And this is also the point when you can do the right things, but the right things no longer become effort. They no longer become complex to you. And so you can just do the right things day in, day out and not even feel tired, feel exhausted, feel embittered, resentment, etc. And so this is why we say you have to practice something, not until you can get it right, but until you cannot get it wrong anymore. And this is the essence of what it means to adopt the performance mindset. And without untetheredness, without adopting that performance mindset, it'll be very, very difficult for you to create ingredient number 2 and create it for a long time in a very consistent fashion. And this ingredient right here, ingredient number 2, is perhaps the most important ingredient to re-attracting her back. Because this, number 2, is really hard to fake. Anyone can fake saying the right things here and there, but they cannot fake not doing the wrong things for a long period of time. And that brings us to ingredient number 3, which is creating this environment that allows your partner to feel like that her decision to either feel safe, to eventually come back into the relationship, is her decision and her decision alone, and not a decision that you pulled her into. So as I say, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make them drink. But the problem again is that a lot of men try to get their partners to drink whatever Kool-Aid they're trying to sell. So for example, a lot of people try to build ingredient number 1, and they try to talk about their changes, discuss their changes, show off their changes to their partner. And a lot of men usually after a week or a month or 2 months of doing this, they start to get quite impatient and upset when their partner is not really buying a lot of the changes that they're showcasing here. And the way we break ingredient number 3 does not have to be overt like this, where you're actively getting impatient, actively getting angry when your partner is not taking in the seeds that you're planting, basically. It can be a lot more subtle than that. And subtle meaning it can show up in your subtle micro expressions, the microtones, a tinge in your voice that suggests that you are doing these things because you want to have. You're doing these things because you're secretly wanting her to come back to you. And ingredient number 3 is crucial, guys, because if you just create ingredient number 1 and 2 and not number 3, you'd be like a lot of my clients who go through what we call fake reconciliation. So fake reconciliation is when your partner starts to come back to you, come closer to the relationship, not because she wants to, but maybe because she needs to, either because she feels the pressure to come back or she feels the fear of exploring and getting out there. So she feels that pull to come back, but it's not because she wants to do it herself. And when this happens, when you get fake reconciliation, that will never last long. And if you want to see an example of this, you can watch the interview I have with Andrew Wade, who went through exactly that. He went through a fake reconciliation. The tricky thing about ingredient number 3 though, is that it might sound simple, but it's not easy to create. And most men cannot actually create ingredient number 3. For example, if I were to tell you right now, in order for you to create ingredient number 3, you actually might have to allow your partner to explore what it's like being single. So you have to actually actively encourage her, go be single. Or even in the most extreme sense, or in the most extreme cases, you might even have to encourage her to explore other relationships in the short term. And a lot of people hearing that will think, this is crazy. You are being simpy, Jeff. You're saying the wrong things. I can't believe you're saying these things. A lot of people will get very offended, very upset, very panicked by that. But before you judge this recommendation, I want you to think deeply about this from your own perspective for a bit. So I want you to imagine here that you've been unhappy in a relationship for a very long time, and you know that you only have one life to live, and you know that you chose the wrong person to dedicate your life to. You chose the wrong person to spend the rest of your life with, and you've been wanting to get out for a very long time, or at the very least, you've been trying to express your unhappiness for a very long time. But whenever you express your unhappiness, you get blamed that you just misunderstood the whole situation, and whatever you feel, whatever unhappiness you feel isn't real. It's just based on a simple misunderstanding. So obviously, if you express your unhappiness, nothing really happens. In fact, you get painted the villain. But again, when you don't express, then you will just be left to accept the fact that maybe you'll be unhappy forever. So imagine you're here, and now you finally mustered up the courage to actually decide, I want to leave now. I want to explore being single. I want to explore maybe other relationships because I only have one life here and I chose the wrong person. And when you say that, instantly you get painted as more of a villain. You're not allowed to do that anymore. You feel controlled to be back into the relationship. How would you feel? Would that actually make you want to surrender to this person more? Or would that actually make you think, you know what? This feeling of control I have is why I wanted to leave in the first place. And so this just confirms that I need to leave. And if you are unable to create ingredient number 3, or if you feel right now offended when I said that maybe you need to encourage your partner to explore being single or other relationships, and this might sound harsh, guys, but usually that means that you have a lot of insecurity about your own value in a relationship. Because usually when people are really offended when I say, let your partner explore being single or other relationships, what they're really saying is, I'm scared that my partner will find someone else better than what she had with me. But if you were really 10x in your ability to create safety, admiration, alignment, passion, your ability to lead conversations, create safety, etc., what do you have to fear if you really think about it? And we know this because after enrolling 4,000 plus clients, we've never had one case where our clients empower their partner, that freedom, that sense of agency, and that freedom to explore, and have their partners actually take advantage of them and them feel like they're being taken advantage of by their partner. Because it's actually extremely attractive. It's actually extremely respectable for someone to be able to create ingredient number 3. So I want you to imagine again that you're applying for a job right now and your employer says to you, or your future employer says to you, you're not allowed to look at any other jobs, any other things, any other alternatives. You can only pick this job and this job alone. If you pick another job, that means you're not loyal and we will never hire you again. Does that make the company sound powerful and secure? Probably not. The more secure company is going to go, I want you to explore other jobs. Look at your alternatives. And if you really want this job, then please come back. That's a much more powerful position to be in. So we've already talked about this quite extensively in our other videos too. So I'm going to leave a link above my head, also down below this video. And this is why in our program, we really stress the internal and external skills that actually matter in making you irreplaceable. So these are the changes that are not only necessary, but also sufficient into creating that attraction back into the relationship. We talk about this concept of noble selfishness. And I know this word sounds like mumbo jumbo to you right now. So I'm going to link to you to another video where we talk about these concepts very deeply as well. And this brings us to the last ingredient, which is time. And now that you've planted all the seeds and you've created all the other ingredients, it's now time to let those other 3 ingredients time to grow. And this is really a matter of letting your emotions catch up with your logic. And so there's a lot of moments in your life, for example, where you know you're supposed to do something. You know this is the right thing to do. Logically, you know that. But emotionally, you just cannot seem to muster the action, the motivation, the actual action to do that thing. So the way you can think about this is ingredients number 1 to 3 is like planting seeds in a farm. And number 4 is you simply having the patience to let those seeds grow. If you keep festering and playing and tickling with the plants might not grow. And again, this is the point of our program where untethering and identity shifting and being a performer becomes extremely key. You have to master all those skills to the utmost of what those skills mean. Because the act of waiting can sound very simple. When you're waiting, you're literally doing nothing. You're just sitting and waiting. But for a lot of us, whether we're waiting in a doctor's office, waiting for a partner to fall back in love with us, that waiting can be so agonizing. And it's agonizing because of all the expectations that we have while we're waiting. So if you're still tethered, if you're not a performer yet, then you're going to have a lot of very intrusive thoughts while you're waiting that will make waiting very, very agonizing for you. And so these are the 4 ingredients, guys. And the thing about these ingredients is that you have to create all 4. And any humans, including your partner, including yourself, will need all 4 ingredients to be able to surrender and jump with both feet into something, into a decision, into choosing to be with someone, etc. And if just one of these ingredients are missing, it'll be very hard for you to fall. Now think about this for your own life, for example. Let's say you're deciding on whether you want to be with a particular person and spend the rest of your life with one particular person or not. Now look at these 4 ingredients again. What if you're missing one of these? So let's say, what if this person is giving you plenty of evidence that they're the great person to be with? They're giving you a bunch of freedom and time to actually feel that agency to decide whether you want to make this decision on your own or not. Let's say they're giving you a lot of time, but they're constantly giving you a lot of red flags in a way, a lot of bad seeds. So 1, 3, and 4 ingredients are good. Number 2, not good. Can you actually fall and surrender to that decision to say, I will jump in with both feet to be with this person? It's going to be very hard for your partner to surrender. So if you want to understand how to create this safety and how to create the 4 ingredients in a proper way and avoid a lot of the subconscious and subtle mistakes that I see a lot of people making, then I want you to join me in my masterclass on the 5 proven steps to rebuilding your relationship from the ground up. In that masterclass, I'll show you the exact process, both internal and external, that all my clients use to get them from a dire situation to where they are today. So if you want to join me in the masterclass, or if you want to submit your application for the Relationship Revival Program, then click the link above my head or also down below this video as well to join that. In the meantime, guys, I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.